This is me, life should be fun for everyone. Life is easy if you wear a smile. Just be yourself, don't ever change your style. You are you, I am me, we'll be free. Hello world, this is me, life should be, yeah, fun for everyone. Hello world, come and see.
Welcome dear viewers, we're delighted to be with you for the latter part of the program on containing Ebola. As I was telling you last week, there's a window of opportunity to show you the latter part. And this window is now widely opened. Instead of 13 minutes, we have now 26 minutes.
Wow, that is wonderful. Before listening to Mr. Travis Murphy, the press attaché, we invited to listen to Anna Matthews' reports.
A top health expert warns that the whole world needs to help deal with what he calls the first Ebola epidemic the world has known. Tom Frieden, director of the U.S. Centers for Disease Control, spoke to reporters at the CDC headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia. He warns that the Ebola spread in West Africa will expand greatly over the next few weeks. He says a massive global effort is needed now to contain the disease. Dr. Frieden just returned from a visit to the most affected countries, Sierra Leone, Guinea, and Liberia. He says Ebola cases continue to increase quickly, even though healthcare workers are working extremely hard against the spread. Dr. Frieden says the number of Ebola cases is now more than 3,000. He adds that this number is expected to rise quickly in coming weeks. He warns that there is a window of opportunity to stop Ebola, but he adds that window is closing.
There is a window of opportunity to tamp this down, but that window is closing. We need action now to scale up the response.
The CDC chief says the Ebola virus is spreading in two ways, from patients to caregivers and through unsafe treatment of the dead.
It's spreading from just two routes: people caring for other people in hospitals or homes, and unsafe burial practices where people may come in contact with body fluids of someone who's died from Ebola. That is really the Achilles heel of this virus. We know how it spreads. We know how to stop it from spreading. The challenge is to do that everywhere that's needed.
Before leaving for Europe, President Obama videotaped a message for the people of West Africa.
On behalf of the American people, I want you to know that our prayers are with those of you who have lost loved ones during this terrible outbreak of Ebola.
Mr. Obama says he hopes to clear some of the misunderstanding about the spread of Ebola. He says infection only comes through contact with an infected person or the body fluids of someone who has died of Ebola.
That's why the disease is continuing to spread where patients are being cared for at home or during burials when families and friends lay their loved ones to rest.
He says people can respect their traditions and honor the dead without risking the lives of the living. Dr. Frieden warns that each day's delay in dealing with the Ebola spread makes it more difficult to stop. The CDC director says resources, technical experts, and a worldwide organized and unified plan are needed. He says Ebola is not only an African problem, but a world problem. The president of the medical aid group Doctors Without Borders made similar comments at the United Nations. Joanne Liu said the world is losing the battle to contain Ebola. She spoke about the increasing chaos of the situation.
Riots are breaking out. Isolation centers are overwhelmed. Health workers on the front lines are becoming infected and are dying in shocking numbers. Others have fled in fear, leaving people without care for even the most common illnesses. Entire health systems have crumbled.
Ms. Liu said the centers have become places where people go to die alone.
I hope you listened very carefully to Anna Mathieu reports. Let's now use the words in some sentences.
So, let's turn to our words, and let's say first the window of opportunity, okay? We now have a window of opportunity to hear your sentences. Okay, so what do you have here?
My name is Tanoi Grace Sylvie, and my sentence is: we think that Côte d'Ivoire has a window opportunity to sensitize its population against Ebola in order to not enter in our country.
Okay, good. Let's go to this side. Let's go here. Window of opportunity. Let's do window of opportunity. A few.
There is a window of opportunity to solve definitively the historical crisis in Côte d'Ivoire.
Okay. So right now, a window of opportunity to deal with the years of crisis that have taken place in Côte d'Ivoire. Good. Okay, let's go to the back here.
The window of opportunity to bring back peace in Côte d'Ivoire is wide open. We had better keep it before it closes.
Good. Okay, so the window of opportunity is open, right? It's open. Okay, let's go here.
My name is Aswayao Alassane, and this is my sentence. A window of opportunity is given to Côte d'Ivoire through the future election to choose our president so that to avoid a chaotic situation.
Okay, nice. You see what he did there? He put window of opportunity and chaotic in the same sentence. We call that extra credit, right? So let's go to chaos. Who's got a sentence for chaos? Let's go right here.
A full involvement of Ivorians in the campaign of Ebola by educated them permits to avoid the chaos.
Okay, good.
My name is Jean-Paul Richard Bakouniangoran. I think that Ebola is a bad disease, and it will be a chaotic situation for Ivorian people if we have it here. So we have a window of opportunity to stop it from getting in our country.
Okay, right here.
The attitude of some African presidents to maintain themselves on power can bring chaos in their respective countries.
Wow, okay, good. Let's go to riot. So chaos can descend into a riot, right? So who's got a sentence for riot here?
The outbreak of the Ebola virus the world over led to many riots the world over.
I'm called Ira. Riots can impede the development of our country.
It's good.
The increase of the fuel price has brought riots in the city.
Okay. So the next one's tough. So obstetrics. That's a tough one to pronounce, right? As a non-English speaker, but let's give it a try. Obstetrics.
I'm Claudio Martial. My sentence is: we need the doctor of obstetrics in the north part of Côte d'Ivoire, because a lot of women are suffered after giving birth in the bad condition after excision.
Okay. Obstetrics, you want to give us a try?
This woman is pregnant, so she goes regularly to an obstetric center.
Very good.
Create a numerical obstetrical tab could be efficient in the obstetric field for the medicine in Côte d'Ivoire.
Okay. Wow, that's good. That's complicated. That's good. Okay, let's go to a little easier word, missionary. Who's got missionary? Okay, that's a little easier, right? Okay, let's go here.
My name is Penny Monzara. Okay, my sentence is:
The missionary in Cote d'Ivoire go to Nigeria for help them to eradicate Ebola.
Okay, good. So missionaries that traveled who have been involved. Let's go to this side. Or you got one here? Okay.
My name is Ngetia. My example is the missionaries are very scary so to come in Cote d'Ivoire after the discovery of Ebola in West Africa.
Okay.
Missionaries jeopardize their life by spreading the gospel in the contaminated countries.
They risk their lives?
Yeah, they jeopardize their life.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay, let's go over here. You talked about spreading the gospel, right? What missionaries work to do.
A group of missionaries in Cote d'Ivoire are praying for Ebola eradication.
Okay. Yeah, missionaries praying for eradication. Okay.
Reverend Dr. Ngoram. Ivorian missionary pastors have gathered and will meet again in the upcoming month to struggle spiritually against Ebola through collective prayers.
Okay, good.
My name is Azumana. During the colonization in Africa, European people sent missionaries to convert people, African people, to Christianity.
It's good. That's true.
We thank the participants for their sentences. Let's now talk about how people get Ebola with Mr. Travis Murphy and the participants.
Let's talk about this story a little bit more. Let's have a little bit more of a debate, a conversation about this story, okay? So first, who are the people that get Ebola? How are they doing it? Here.
The specific person presently who get Ebola, we have first the population in the village, and we have the medicine, those who are close to all the population.
Okay. Because you don't get it just by living in the village. What do you do to get the disease?
The people who are hunting in the bush.
Uh-huh.
So the disease is contracted by hunting the bush animals like rats, mice, and all that.
Okay. I think they have it traced back specifically to a bat, right? Is actually what they think they've traced it back to. So they can actually go through it now through modern science and trace it back to a single person who ate a bat in one of the villages in Guinea back in March of this year. Okay? So you had mentioned it, but what I was looking for as far as who gets it, you're right, it's doctors, right? It's those people, nurses and doctors who are working with patients who are affected. And the second main group of those who get it is the family of somebody who's already infected. Because if your brother, your sister, your son, your daughter, your mom, dad is vomiting, has diarrhea, has a fever, is coughing, is really sick, what are you going to do? You want to help them, right? So it's natural. So you help them, and then if they're demonstrating symptoms, which means they're bleeding, they're coughing, they have the fever, they're contagious, right? Which means that you can then get the disease. Many villages, the families involved in washing the body, preparing it for burial, kissing the body is very common. And so when that person, even though they're already dead, is still contagious, because they still have fluids, they still are contaminated, right? So that means that they're still contagious and people can still get the disease. So those are kind of the three main groups of people that are getting the disease. And so that's important in my country, in the United States right now, because if you see the news, you see how many cases have we had in the United States? Two? One was the guy from Liberia, and then 2 nurses who worked on him, right? So that's the 2 cases that came from the United States. But you know what's happening in my country? People are freaking out, and they think they have a huge outbreak of Ebola, because going back to what we were talking about with riots, it's scary, right? We've never had an epidemic of this size that's killed this many people, that's affected entire countries. And so, you know, it's important that the information, correct information, is understood, is shared, and people know that I can't. If I sit next to a guy in a woro and he coughs, like, I'm not going to get Ebola from that, right? So it's important to know you know, how it is transmitted and how it's not. But what are some of the things that we can do to avoid transmission? Right? There's no reported cases yet here in Côte d'Ivoire, but what can we do to prevent, to make sure that we're keeping the disease out of the country?
As a practical solution right now in Liberia, in cars, when there are free places, the government of Liberia decided since yesterday that only 2 places are to be used.
Okay.
The middle, I mean, the middle is set free.
Okay.
So that they may not touch each other.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, to contain the disease, I think we should launch a drive, just sensitizing people as we did on the 5th October. Because by sensitizing people, you will get to contain the diseases. Most of the time, people stick to the tradition as we used to say. And every time they will kiss, they will shake their hands. And those old habits are very difficult to hand. So we should insist on, as I was saying, to on this.
Right.
Telling them they should stop.
Okay.
If not, we will all die.
A tradition should be abandoned, and that we should never shake hands, and that we should never, you know, give a proper burial to someone. But maybe that for the time being, we change our habits just for a little bit so we can stop the disease, right? Okay? What else can we do? Okay?
To avoid Ebola at the border of each country, it is important to wash your hand with what kind of water, I don't know this kind, with the soap, and you can use it again with glove on your hands before to greet the person.
You know, for any disease, you know, whether it's the grippe, like the flu, or like a cold, just washing your hands, right? Because you're around people, you give money, you exchange people, oh, I'll take the cheque, here's my hand, everybody's dirty, so washing your hands, right, is very important, okay? What else? Over there on this side?
Ebola first came from animals. So it's forbidden to eat bush animals so that to avoid Ebola.
Right. I think that's an interesting point you've made here, because the common translation of what is it, the viande sauvage, like the wild meat, is to call it bush meat. But in English, that's a little pejorative, right? It's a little negative. It sounds a little unsophisticated. But so in the United States, we do the same thing. We hunt deer, we hunt rabbits, we hunt birds, and we eat them. So it's not that different. But we call it wild game, right? So game, you know, like the word game. I mean, what's a game? Football is a game, right? Right? So it's one of those words that has 2 meanings, okay? So game is jeu, like something you play, but then game can also refer to wild animals. They can be game, okay? And so when we talk about what we, in English, what we eat in the United States, we say we eat wild, sauvage, wild game, okay?
Well, it's now time for the debate. As the DDC director has mentioned, Ebola is not only the African problem, but a world problem. But people still wonder why it is in Africa we have many people contaminated. Let's follow the debate.
I couldn't understand. In Africa, most Africans are really contaminated by the disease. And we have few people from the Western people, those are contaminated.
Okay.
I want some information about it.
Okay, so you said that most African countries are contaminated. How many countries are there in Africa? 54. How many countries currently have Ebola? 3. Okay? We got, so that's 51 countries that aren't affected. So I think that's important, number 1. Number 2, why is the disease here, not in Western countries? Because like our friend said here, the disease originated in Africa, right? The disease originated here. It's such that the conditions were such that the disease came from wild animals, entered the human population. For the most part, because of support by international organizations, the United States, working with local health systems, we've always been able to stop the spread of the disease. Because there's been outbreaks before. There's been a lot of Ebola outbreaks. There's even a Côte d'Ivoire strain of Ebola. There's a strain or a type of Ebola called Côte d'Ivoire, right? But we've always stopped it.
Okay, thank you, sir. My question is about animals, because they say that infected animals are infected of Ebola. So while manipulating them, we can be infecting too. So I would like to know, if they are infected naturally, is Ebola existing in the DNA, or is it because those first animal has been in contact with the river Ebola, or why?
Okay.
And what exactly?
Yeah, it's a good question. We might need somebody from the CDC, right, to answer that question. So her question is, like, I mean, it's essentially like, if Ebola is always around, like, where does it come from? And I mean, it's that may be more. I'm a press attaché, not a scientist. But I think, yes, so the answer is, yeah, the disease is always out there, right? It's not eradicated because it still flares up. So there's animals that have it, and normally they just die, right? They get sick and they die in the woods, in the forest, and you never see that, right? But then there's an animal that's really sick, and then somebody kills that animal and eats it, and then it comes into humans. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, then it can start to spread to more and more people. So as far as scientifically, how that continues to populate, I can't really answer that, but I mean, it is something that exists in the animal kingdom within animals, and then by consuming those animals from time to time, things work out in such a way that this particular animal was sick, and this particular human killed this animal, ate it, and then got the disease themselves. So it's through that every once in a while, every couple of years or so, the disease pops up again and there's an outbreak. And this is by far the biggest outbreak that we've ever had, because the others have been smaller, and like we were talking, people weren't so interconnected, and so it was just in one village, they could stop it, and that was it. But this one just keeps growing and growing. So we just have a few more minutes. Are there other questions before we wrap up?
Thank you very much. My name is Aswayao Alassane. My biggest concern is about the experimental medicine, ZMAP, because I've just heard that there's a woman who's working with Doctors Without Borders who had just been cured through experimental medicine, and also the 2 American people. And I just want to know if the coming of the military, of the American militaries, is a hub for this experimental medicine to come here in Africa to be tested on an African for the first time. Because mostly people of Europe and the others are curious about it, but not an African. So if it's a hub for Africa to be cured from this.
Okay. So he's asking about the drug, the ZMAP, the drug that could be a vaccine that could help stop the spread of the disease. And there's research that's going on. It's happening right now in laboratories in the United States, in Europe. People are working, they're pouring in hundreds of millions of dollars into research to try and develop a cure, to try and develop a vaccine. Now you mentioned the military. The military isn't necessarily involved in that research, although they do have researchers, but that's more for what we talked about earlier, the pharmaceutical companies, the biopharmaceuticals. And so it's those companies working on the vaccine and the cure. And it seems like they're getting closer. They have announced that they're going to start field trials. So this goes to your question earlier, where they do trials on humans. Because we don't want a situation where people say, okay, we have a vaccine, let's send it to Africa. And it turns out the vaccine kills everyone. We don't want that. And so we have to test it. Or it makes everybody, it makes people sick. So we have to test it. So that's what they're doing now. They're testing the medication. And then hopefully they think by the end of the year they're going to have a functioning vaccine that they can then send over, and anybody, any country that's affected, any continent, Africa, the United States, anywhere in Europe, anywhere that people can have access to that drug. And it will be available to everyone. I mean, that's the reason they're developing it, okay? So I know there's still a lot of questions, but unfortunately we're out of time. So thank you so much for, this is a huge crowd. I'm sorry for those that are all the way back in the corner, but thank you for coming.
Thank you, dear viewers, for watching Hello. Mr. Travis, your final say before saying goodbye.
Well, I would say the most important thing that people can do to prevent Ebola is to be informed. Understand the disease, how it's contained, how it's treated, how it's prevented. That's the most important thing that people can do.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you, Mr. Travis Murphy. And you, dear viewers, don't forget Ebola is real. See you next week.
Yeah, fun for everyone.